She joined Match.com in early 2018, 2 years after her husband of 24 years died. She was 57 years old, living in Illinois along the river, a small town where routines rarely change, and most conversations happen through a screen. Grief had made the house quiet. Friends visited less often. Family lived hours away. That is where she met Frank. He said he was a Swedish investment advisor, a widower, a businessman working overseas on energy projects. He spoke about travel, London one week, Amsterdam the next, always moving, always busy, but always available for her. They moved off the dating site within days, emails first, then long phone calls that lasted hours. Within 12 days, she told him she loved him. Fast emotional commitment creates immediate trust. He mirrored her life. He said he had a child, just like she did. He said he had family ties to the Midwest. He said he wanted to retire in the United States. Shared details create the illusion of compatibility. By the summer of 2018, they were speaking every day, morning messages, late-night calls, photos from airports and hotel rooms. He was always just about to visit, but something always went wrong. A delayed flight, a lost passport, a frozen account. Then came the first request, a temporary transfer, a loan. He said his funds were tied up in an international deal. He promised repayment when the transaction cleared. She sent a few $1,000s. Nothing bad happened. No warnings from the bank, no alerts. So the requests escalated. 10,000, 50,000. Wire transfers became routine. He instructed her exactly what to tell the bank. He said not to mention his name. He said international finance would confuse them. He told her family would not understand. Isolation is the second illusion. By early 2019, she had sent hundreds of thousands of dollars. Savings accounts were emptied. Retirement funds withdrawn. She took out a mortgage on her home. Each transfer felt like progress toward a future. He spoke about buying a house together. He spoke about marriage. He spoke about paying her back with interest. Then the tone changed. Less romance, more instructions. He asked her to open new bank accounts, to create companies in her name, to receive transfers from other people, to move money quickly before it was flagged. She was no longer just sending money, she was moving money, receiving funds from other victims, and forwarding them to new accounts. She had become a money mule. Victims are turned into participants because it creates leverage. Once someone believes they are involved in a crime, they are easier to control. Her daughter did not know any of this. They spoke regularly, but the financial details were hidden. On August 7th, 2020, a federal investigator left her daughter a voicemail. Her mother's name had appeared in a fraud investigation. Bank records showed large transfers, multiple accounts, transactions across state lines. She drove several hours across Illinois. The house was empty. Her mother had canceled lunch plans minutes before leaving. A neighbor saw her in the driveway on the phone. Inside the house, her daughter began searching for documents. Bank statements, wire receipts, account numbers. She found a note hidden in a filing cabinet. It said she had been living a double life, that she was broken, that it involved Frank, and that she believed she would end up dead. The daughter began reconstructing the timeline. Emails saved on the computer, phone records, bank transactions, dates matched the transfers, messages matched the withdrawals. She ran the photos Frank had sent through reverse image searches. They belonged to someone else, a different name, a different country, a real person whose identity had been stolen. The emails traced overseas. The phone numbers were virtual. This was not one person, it was a network. An organized script. One early transfer of $75,000 had been routed to people in the Chicago suburbs. They were part of the laundering chain. Federal investigators later charged them with wire fraud and money laundering. Bank surveillance showed structured deposits, cash withdrawals timed to incoming wires, funds moved within hours, designed to avoid reporting thresholds. The daughter learned the terminology: layering, structuring, pass-through accounts. She learned how victims are selected: recently widowed, financially stable, active on dating platforms. She learned how scripts are used: daily contact, emotional mirroring, crisis introduction, financial escalation, isolation from family, secrecy from banks. By the time victims realize what happened, their names are attached to accounts they do not fully understand. That is the fourth illusion: perceived complicity, the belief that they cannot go to law enforcement because they think they are involved in a crime. 2 days after she disappeared, her body was found in the Mississippi River, hundreds of miles from her home. Her car was located at a boat ramp in southern Illinois. Her phone had been turned off hours earlier. Her last text message to a friend said, "Everything was fine." Investigators could not determine how she entered the water. They could not confirm whether she was alone during the drive. A box for a prepaid phone was found in her home. The phone itself was missing. Federal records later showed she had been under investigation for creating companies used to move money, victim and participant at the same time. That is the final illusion. When someone believes there is no way out, the daughter retraced the route her mother drove, reviewed surveillance footage from gas stations, spoke with investigators across multiple states. She followed the timeline of the last 2 days: the canceled lunch, the drive south, the stop at the river. She began speaking publicly about the case, working with financial crime investigators, explaining how the manipulation worked, not to expose her mother, but to warn others. Because the question is not, how could someone send $1.5 million? The question is, how do you build a reality where it feels necessary? Loneliness, consistency, isolation, escalation, secrecy, control. Romance scams do not begin with money. They begin with attention. They do not begin with threats. They begin with reassurance. Hope is the final illusion, because people will protect hope, even when the evidence tells them it is not real. Once you understand that illusion, you can recognize it before it takes control. If you want to understand how these scams actually work, subscribe. The next case is even worse.